No, but there are about 8 or 10.
Give me the nicest one.
The happiest moment, I suppose, was the baby shower.
And during that time, I consider the years I spent on I Love Lucy to be perhaps the biggest rip-off of my career.
Everybody loves Lucy. I love Lucy.
Thank
Do you
you.
love Lucy?
I Love Lucy wasn't just a sitcom, it was television history. When it premiered in 1951, more than 40 million Americans tuned in every single week. The show became bigger than just entertainment. It turned into a cultural revolution, one that still echoes through pop culture today. But while audiences were laughing at the antics on screen, behind the cameras a much darker story was unfolding. Vivian Vance, the woman America knew as the lovable Ethel Mertz, carried secrets that could shatter the glossy image of the show. She spoke of cruel feuds with her co-star, the crushing stress of live tapings, and the emotional scars that would follow her long after the camera stopped rolling. On screen, Ethel and Fred Mertz seemed like the perfect comedic pair. But off-screen, they despised each other. William Frawley, more than 20 years her senior, never missed a chance to belittle her. He mocked her appearance, insulted her clothes, and even told people she wasn't attractive enough to play his wife. Imagine enduring that kind of cruelty every single week while millions of people were watching you perform. Vivian wasn't the type to stay silent. She snapped back with cutting remarks of her own, sometimes saying he looked old enough to be her father. The tension between them was so thick the crew often had to step in to calm things down. But here's the twist. That bitterness, that real-life hostility, gave their on-screen fights an authenticity that audiences loved. The laughs were real, but the hatred was. And the feud didn't end when the show wrapped. In fact, it grew even nastier. When William Frawley died of a heart attack in 1966, rumors swirled that Vivian Vance celebrated with champagne. But was that story true? Or just another Hollywood myth? Some claim that at that very party, Vivian Vance's resentment boiled so fiercely she nearly threw a punch at William Frawley's image on the television screen. Maybe those stories were exaggerated, maybe not. But the fact that they even existed showed just how deep their hatred ran. According to the New York Times, her celebratory reaction wasn't just spite, it was the release of decades of bottled-up exhaustion, the breaking point after years of insults she had been forced to swallow in silence. For so long she had repressed her anger, putting on the mask of professionalism, while every cruel remark carved deeper scars. And the fallout didn't just bruise her pride, it shaped her career. At the very height of I Love Lucy's success, producer Daisy Arnaz wanted to launch a spin-off built around Fred and Ethel Mertz. It could have made both stars household names forever. But Vivian shut it down instantly. As Variety reported, she said only one sentence: "I don't want to work with him anymore." And that was the end of it. The feud wasn't just personal anymore. It exposed a darker truth about the golden age of television. Behind the cheerful laughter of 1950s sitcoms often hid bitterness, power struggles, and broken spirits. Fred and Ethel may have gone down as one of TV's most iconic couples, but in reality, their partnership was fueled by venom. And yet, William Frawley wasn't Vivian's only battle. There was someone else, someone far more powerful. Because if her feud with Frawley was open hatred, her relationship with Lucille Ball was something much more complicated. It started even before the first episode was filmed. When casting Ethel Mertz, Lucille Ball had the final say. And in her mind, Ethel was supposed to be plain a frumpy middle-aged housewife who would never outshine Lucy. When the director suggested Vivian Vance, Ball hesitated. She thought Vance was too glamorous, too polished, the exact opposite of the sidekick she had envisioned. "I need an Ethel who looks like a housewife," Ball once bluntly told the Saturday Evening Post. Not someone who might upstage Lucy. Vivian knew she wasn't trusted, but instead of backing down, she turned it into fuel. "I'll prove I belong here," she declared in an interview with the Los Angeles Times. "I'll prove I'm indispensable." It was a bold vow, but Hollywood has a way of crushing defiance. When filming began, the gap between the two women didn't close. It stretched wider, drawn tight like a wire ready to snap. Lucille Ball was not just the star, she was the producer. She controlled every detail. And she made sure Vivian's character looked ordinary, sometimes even pitiful, next to her own. She ordered Vance to dress in dowdy clothes, even suggested she gain weight, all to make Lucy shine brighter by comparison. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Vivian often cried after long shooting days where even her smallest gestures were corrected. And in a private confession to TV Guide, she admitted something heartbreaking. There were moments I felt like nothing but a puppet, a pawn in Lucille's perfect strategy. But that wasn't the full story, because behind their clashes, something unexpected began to take shape. And yet, out of all that chaos and tension came something nobody could have predicted, one of the most beautiful friendships in Hollywood history. The constant stress of live tapings became a crucible, and instead of breaking her, it forged Vivian Vance into Lucille Ball's equal. Her sharp comedic timing and instinctive improvisation began saving scenes that were seconds away from collapse. With just a glance or a perfectly timed reaction, she could transform disaster into comedy gold. According to Look magazine, those flashes of brilliance forced Lucille Ball to see her co-star differently. Suspicion slowly turned to admiration, and admiration became respect. Against all odds, the two women grew inseparable. And when Vivian Vance faced her toughest battle cancer, Lucille Ball was there every step of the way. She called daily, visited often, and together they laughed, cried, and remembered the joy they had created. Losing Vivian, Ball later confessed to Good Housekeeping, was like losing a sister. For Vivian, the feeling was mutual. In her final days, she told the New York Post, "Lucille was the one who understood me best through the darkest times and the happiest. We grew up together." When Vance passed in 1979, Lucille Ball was shattered. For years, she spoke of her with deep affection, always carrying that grief. From bitter rivals to soul-deep sisters, their bond was a testament to resilience, forgiveness, and the power of turning differences into strength. But while the friendship was real and profound, the role of Ethel Mertz became a double-edged sword. On screen, she was adored. Off screen, it became a prison. Vivian Vance, once a celebrated Broadway actress, found herself locked into a stereotype that refused to let her go. To the world, she wasn't Vivian, she was Ethel. Strangers shouted her name in grocery stores, waved at her in restaurants, even teased her in public as if she were the frumpy sidekick forever. It got so overwhelming that she began carrying a small card in her purse that read, "I am Vivian Vance, not Ethel Mertz." The transformation was brutal. A woman who had once been hailed as a Broadway star was now trapped in a role that demanded she dress plain, gain weight, and constantly play second fiddle. Depression began to creep in. By the 1960s, friends remembered her voicing the same haunting fear, that her legacy would be reduced to nothing more than Lucy's sidekick. Even though she had delivered some of the sharpest comedic chemistry in television history, the spotlight rarely touched her. She was proud of Ethel, one close friend told The Hollywood Reporter, but deep down she longed for the world to know she could do so much more. The sting only deepened as she looked back on her Broadway triumphs leading roles that had once electrified audiences. Now, it all felt buried under the shadow of Ethel Mertz, and yet Vivian Vance refused to be erased. She fought back, taking on new projects like Guestward Ho and returning to the stage in regional theater. But the question that haunted her was this: could she ever break free from the ghost of Ethel Mertz? Or was she destined to remain trapped in a role she both loved and resented? Vivian Vance's fight to reclaim her identity was proof of her iron will. According to Variety, it showed a woman determined not to be caged by one role forever. And in that battle, she found an unlikely ally, Lucille Ball. Over the years, Ball became her fiercest defender, even telling Vanity Fair that Vance was the most underrated comedian in Hollywood. A major turning point came in 1962 when Vance reunited with Ball on The Lucy Show. But this time, she drew a line in the sand. She refused to be Ethel again. Instead, her new character was given a different name, Vivian Bagley. On paper, it seemed like a minor detail, In reality, it was a desperate attempt to step out of Ethel's enormous shadow. The backlash was brutal. Fans accused her of being ungrateful, even betraying the role that had made her famous. Letters poured in, criticizing her for abandoning the character audiences adored. But Vance never ran from her past. She simply wanted to prove she was more than a single role. As she told the New York Post, "It wasn't about denying Ethel Mertz, it was about survival. I needed to reclaim my identity in an industry that tries to lock you in a box for life. And yet, the price was cruel." Success had immortalized her as Ethel, but in the process, it erased Vivian. To millions of viewers, she wasn't a Broadway star or a versatile actress. She was only the frumpy housewife. This was television's paradox. Eternal fame bought at the cost of the self. A smile for the audience, and often loneliness behind the curtain. The weight of I Love Lucy didn't just crush Vivian, it pushed everyone involved to their breaking point. The writing team, Jess Oppenheimer, Madeline Pugh, and Bob Carroll Jr., worked themselves to exhaustion, crafting 39 episodes a year. Hundreds of scripts in 6 relentless seasons, often without recognition. At that time, television writing wasn't even considered worthy of its own Emmy category. For the actors, the pressure was just as brutal. There were no second takes, no safety nets. One wrong line, one missed cue, and the entire episode could collapse. Vivian admitted to the New York Post, "The scripts were brilliant, but the pressure was terrifying. We laughed on stage, but inside we trembled, afraid we'd ruin everything. And yet, out of that pressure came greatness." In 1953, Vivian Vance made history, becoming the very first woman ever to win an Emmy for Best Supporting Actress. She wasn't just Lucy's sidekick, she was the heartbeat of the show, the warmth that made audiences believe in the messy, hilarious beauty of ordinary life. Her win was revolutionary. For the first time, a supporting role was recognized as equal to the lead. And she didn't stop there. Vance went on to earn 3 more Emmy nominations in 1955, 1957, and 1958, proof that her talent wasn't a spark, but a steady flame that could make millions laugh, cry, and see themselves on screen. But while awards cemented her legacy, they didn't erase the pain. Because even as the world celebrated Ethel Mertz, Vivian Vance was still searching for something more. In one interview, she admitted, "The Emmy was a surprise, but what I'm most proud of is bringing smiles to audiences. But sometimes the spotlight that should have lifted her instead cast a shadow." The world adored Ethel Mertz, yet often forgot the woman behind her. Vivian wondered, would history remember her as the Broadway actress who once wowed New York, or only as Lucy's sidekick forever frozen in reruns? When she passed away in 1979, many feared the answer. But more than a decade later, Hollywood gave its verdict. In 1991, Vivian Vance finally received her star on the Walk of Fame. A belated recognition, yes, but also a declaration that she wasn't just Ethel. She was a vital part of television history. Meanwhile, I Love Lucy only grew bigger. Episodes like Vitamita Vegamin and Lucy Does a TV Commercial became cultural landmarks, studied in film schools and replayed in tribute specials decades later. Audiences laughed at Lucy's chaos, but they also saw themselves in Ethel steady, flawed, loyal, and real. Vivian once told TV Guide, "Ethel wasn't just Lucy's friend. She was the friend audiences saw themselves in." That truth gave power to supporting roles everywhere. Betty White, Rhea Perlman, Valerie Harper, generations of actresses openly credited Vivian for showing that the woman in the background could shape the heartbeat of an entire show. Television historians now agree, without Ethel Mertz, I Love Lucy could never have become a global phenomenon. She wasn't just a sidekick. She was the mirror that made Lucy shine brighter. When her star was unveiled on Hollywood Boulevard, many women in Hollywood felt it as their victory too. Critics even called her the mother of unforgettable supporting roles. Without Vivian, would Carla from Cheers or Rhoda from The Mary Tyler Moore Show have ever resonated so deeply? Probably not. She set a standard help the lead sparkle, but leave your own mark on the audience's heart. As one TV historian put it, Ethel was Lucy's mirror, but Vivian Vance made that mirror glow with its own life. She was the reason audiences believed Lucy was never alone. And even now when I Love Lucy is remembered, it's never just Lucille Ball. It's Lucy and Ethel. It's Lucille Ball and Vivian Vance, proof that sometimes the one standing just outside the spotlight is the one holding the entire stage together. But as bright as that legacy shines, it isn't the whole story. Because behind every laugh track, there are battles no camera ever captured. Behind the applause, there are wounds that recognition never truly healed. And Vivian's story, like all legends, is built not just on smiles, but on scars too deep to fade.